Kia ora koutou katoa, ngā mihi nui kia koutou. I welcome you in the language of Te Reo Māori and bring you the warmest greetings of Aotearoa, New Zealand. I consider it a true honour and a privilege to be joining you here this morning, so I thank you for sharing and spending a little bit of time with me. Now, I began preparing my comments for today's event while I was sitting in my constituency office in Auckland, New Zealand. It's a relatively humble space, made all the more so by the fact that I've never quite completely unpacked my office and I still sit amongst quite a few boxes. But on my desk sits a photo of my nana. She died when I was 12 years old, but was a really staunch member of the New Zealand Labour Party, the party that I am now very, very proud to lead. Now, next to my nana sits a framed image of Kate Sheppard. She was the suffragist who we in New Zealand credit for the fact that women were granted the right to vote in New Zealand 125 years ago. We were the very first in the world. And a framed box sits nearby Kate. It's a letter I received from Hillary Clinton after the 2017 election in New Zealand, and it's signed off with the words, "Never, never, never give up." And finally, on my far wall sits a cartoon. It's of Nelson Mandela, and underneath it contains his words, quote, "Overcoming poverty is not a task of charity, it is an act of justice." Now, you could say that the artifacts that I sit amongst in that office really sum up my life in politics. It started with my family. It's been full of role models. But ultimately, it is motivated by the simple idea that politics is a place that you can address injustice. I grew up in two small towns in New Zealand. Given our population as an entire nation is only roughly 4.5 million people, you probably think our entire country is a small town relative to yours, but I'm talking about towns of something like 3,000 people. First town I grew up in was a little place called Murupara, and that place taught me about inequality. I was raised the daughter of a policeman and was the product of the 1980s, where New Zealand went through a really rapid period of privatisation and economic liberalisation. Now, in New Zealand, that period was called Rogernomics. It was named after our finance minister of the time. In America, the same or similar phenomenon was known as Reaganomics. And the impact on working families was similar. Jobs in New Zealand were lost. Manufacturers moved offshore, regulations were removed, and the gap between rich and poor grew. Then came the 1990s. A Conservative government in New Zealand introduced reforms that brought user pay to the fore, and also welfare cuts to the poorest. Now, I was really young when all of this was happening around me, but I still remember it. And if it is possible for you to build your social conscience when you are a schoolgirl, then that's what happened to me. Now, I never looked at the world through a lens of politics, though, but rather through a lens of fairness. And that sentiment captures one of the most pervasive values that we have in Aotearoa, New Zealand. We are proud, but also self-deprecating. We are dreamers, but we are also complete pragmatists. And if there is one thing we hate, it is injustice. We try our best to do right by one another. Now, perhaps it comes from being a million miles away from anywhere, isolated and completely reliant on one another. We think that a 3-hour flight is a short commute. And we hardly bat an eyelid when it takes 12. If it takes a full 24 hours in the sky just to reach Europe, don't get me started on 17 hours to get to New York with a 3-month-old baby. Yet, despite our geographic isolation, we are acutely aware of the impact that we have on the world and that the rest of the world has on us. Now, these are values that I believe we need to display in our politics, because politics is increasingly a dirty word, but values are not. Values have always been my starting point. I signed up to a political party when I was just 17 years old, not because I was looking for a career, but perhaps naively, I wanted to change the world. I was promptly handed, upon joining a political party, 300 leaflets and sent out to change the world one letterbox at a time. But what does it look like to bring that values-based approach into politics? How do we make the rhetoric meaningful and make sure that we're delivering genuine change for our population? Now, some would argue if you're looking for a long list of values-based reforms, you need look no further than the Sustainable Development Goals, and they would be right. An earnest politician would be hard-pressed to argue with goals like halving poverty and preserving the sustainability of our oceans or inclusive education. And yet, the SDGs haven't been treated as a given. And on a number of measures, I know we in New Zealand have a long way to go too. Now, our response to this challenge hasn't been to create a tick box list. Instead, we have decided to try something no other country has done before and embed indicators like the SDGs into everything that we do. So we've started by redefining what success looks like. Now, traditionally, success or failure in politics has been measured purely in economic terms: growth, GDP, your trade deficit, and the level of debt that you carry. But on those terms, you would call New Zealand relatively successful. But in the last few years, the deficiency of such measures has become stark. We, for instance, in New Zealand have had rates of growth that international commentators have remarked upon and commended. But at the same time, we've also had some of the worst homelessness in the OECD and growing inequality. Now, I don't consider that success. Economic growth accompanied by worsening social outcomes is a failure. So we are establishing brand new measures of national achievement that go beyond growth. We have, for instance, created a tool called the Living Standards Framework. It puts the notion of sustainable intergenerational well-being at the centre of the different decision-making processes we have: policy advice, government expenditure, and long-term management of assets. We will start tracking our progress against a range of new and different tools. Our statistics department is at the moment working on an ambitious project called Indicators Aotearoa New Zealand that aims to create a comprehensive set of indicators across dimensions that include current and future wellbeing of New Zealand, both economic, cultural, social, and environmental. Now, these tools will ultimately help us to deliver and monitor the delivery of the SDGs. Our very first test of the new approach we are using will be next year. That's when we deliver our first budget using these new measures. We've called it the Wellbeing Budget, and it will unashamedly look to invest in the next generation. But look, all of this is the how. The way we are choosing to work doesn't tell you much about what it is that we will be rolling out, our agenda for change. For that, I want to reference again the starting point for New Zealand. Now, like many, New Zealand has not been immune to a period of rapid and transformational change over these past few decades. Globalisation has changed the way we operate, but has also had a material difference on the lives of our citizens. Not everyone has been well served by these changes. While at a global level, economic growth has been unprecedented, the distribution of benefits has been uneven at the level of individuals and communities. In fact, for many, the transition our economies have made in the wake of globalisation has been jarring. Now, as politicians, we all have choices in how we respond. We can whip up resentment, or we can build a response. Now, our choice in New Zealand is action. That's why one of our key priorities is to grow and share more fairly New Zealand's prosperity. We're investing more in research and development so that we improve the productivity of our country. We're focusing on shifting away from volume instead to value in our exports, and we're committing to lifting wages. We know we can't fund our social program unless we generate income from exports, so We're supporting exporters, but also workers and the environment by pursuing a new progressive set of free trade agreements and developing a trade for all agenda. We're modernising our Reserve Bank so that it works to keep both inflation in check but also unemployment low. And we're committed to a better balanced and fairer tax system. We also need to do better at lifting incomes of New Zealanders, ensuring the gains of economic growth. So we are progressing pay equity settlements with workforces of predominantly women workers. We're taking the pressure off families by extending paid parental leave to 26 weeks. We're closing the gender pay gap, and we have already raised the minimum wage and will keep raising it right through to 2020. When fully rolled out, our families package, a tax credit policy aimed at lower middle income earners in New Zealand, will lift thousands of children out of poverty. But economic gains and growth, they matter for nothing if we sacrifice our environment along the way or if we fail to prepare for the future. It's why we are transitioning New Zealand to a clean, green, carbon neutral economy. That means making the transition to a net zero carbon economy, and we'll do that by 2050. Our $100 million Green Innovation Fund will help business to tap opportunities in smart, low carbon industries. We've also launched a program that will see 1 billion trees planted in New Zealand over the next 10 years to support our climate change agenda and generate jobs. That is more trees than sheep, I can assure you. We'll also put an end to new offshore oil and gas exploration permits and have set a goal of having 100% renewable energy generation by 2035. We also need to bring back some authenticity to our clean green image by better managing the waste we produce, investing to protect our unique biodiversity, ensuring our rivers are swimmable for future generations, and we have plans in all of those areas. But of course, we are nothing without our people. Now, we've set ourselves some big goals, like ensuring that everyone who is able is either earning, learning, caring, or volunteering, including making the first year of tertiary study in New Zealand completely free of fees. We're supporting healthier, safer, and more connected communities. We're ensuring everyone has a warm, dry home. And last but not least, making New Zealand the best place in the world to be a child. Now, this agenda is quite personal to me. I'm the Minister, as well as Prime Minister, for child poverty reduction in New Zealand. Now, I took that portfolio because of the importance we place on lifting tens of thousands of children out of poverty and ensuring that every child, no matter what their background, has their basic needs met and the opportunity to thrive. We are determined to make a difference. This year we will pass into law the Child Poverty Reduction Bill that will make it a legislative requirement to report on how many children we have lifted out of poverty. We also know that it's not just about family incomes, but whether a child has all their needs met, including good health, a roof over their head, a great education, and perhaps the thing we take for granted the most, time with their parents and their caregivers. If I were to sum up our agenda, though, it would be very simple. I want to demonstrate that politics doesn't have to be about 3 or 4 year cycles. It doesn't have to be self-interested or have a singular focus. It can be about long-term challenges, and we can respond to them. It can be designed to think about the impact on others and show that we are making a difference. And it can even be kind. As an international community, I'm constantly heartened by our ability to take a multilateral approach, to sign up to a set of aspirations that are values-based. But perhaps it's also time to challenge ourselves to move beyond aspiration to action. I can assure you that is what we will be doing from our corner of the world. And I can also assure you that we will never, never, never give up.
Policy today. Thank you very much. the Paris Agreement on climate change is particularly. I mean, the Secretary General of the United Nations has started terms to maybe restart thinking long terms. In these days, take their responsibility. This is politics. It's not just...
Has not been immune to a period of rapid transformation. I know we in New Zealand have a long way to go too.